Good evening, everybody. It's just a little bit past 10:30 here on a spooky Halloween night in southwestern Pennsylvania. You're listening to another live broadcast of Real Steel Sports via Spreaker Web Radio with your host, Mr. James Krishnarik. I apologize for not doing a show earlier in the week. I had a couple of schoolwork. Let's just put it this way: schoolwork calls. I had a lot of stuff I had to take care of. I would just like to comment on, tonight's game. I did pick the Cincinnati Bengals to beat the Miami Dolphins, and with 18 minutes to go, unless Andy Dalton pulls a rabbit out of his ass, or rabbit out of his hat, I should say, they're going to lose this Halloween Day matchup. I think the Bengals are a good team, personally, as they just scored a touchdown, by the way. I hope it was A.J. Green because I have him on my fantasy team. Check real quick. Nope. Giovanni Bernard in a rushing touchdown. I think the Bengals have the potential to possibly, win a couple of playoff games, but I don't think they're going to win more than maybe one. I think they'll be a one-and-done team. I just think that, I know New England struggled and they got beat by Cincy, but I think that Cincy is going to be a little bit inconsistent down the stretch. But let's get to the picks for Week 9, everybody. First off, I hope everybody enjoyed having a happy and safe Halloween. Careful, there's a lot of nutcases out on Halloween. What did I do on Halloween? I didn't do a whole lot. I more or less, did some of my research for planning for these shows that I do. Preparing my show that I broadcast for CCAC tomorrow at 9, which, I love to do Monday, Wednesday, Fridays at 9 a.m. for the semester at least. And I also got a chance, to do some research on some things that I like to do, Particularly, I wonder if anyone's ever heard of this. There's a card game called Cards Against Humanity. Let's put it this way, if anyone's ever played Apples to Apples, it's it's the really bad version. You'd call it rotten, it's just really bad, but it's funny. Let's put it this way, it's the card game for horrible people. It was made up by a bunch of high school students. You can end up understanding that. And I think it's a lot of fun. I played at school, and I want to get my own set of my own custom cards. It's a lot of fun. But anyways, I hope everybody had a great, safe, and exciting Halloween. I hope you little buggers out there that went trick-or-treating got a lot of candy. But anyways, it's time to get down to some picks. I picked the Bengals to beat the Dolphins, so I'm going to probably get that game wrong. The next game, the first Sunday, let's go through the Sunday games, the 1 o'clock game. You got Atlanta at Carolina. Has anyone seen Carolina's defensive line this year? It's been sick. It's been godly good. They've won, 3 straight games, and they got the second best statistical defense in terms of points in the NFL. Second in points, third in yards, ninth in passing, second in rushing. They're just shutting teams down. Cam Newton is playing at a level we haven't seen him play yet in his brief NFL career. The defense has 22 sacks through 7 games and 9 receptions. Not particularly eye-popping numbers, but if you look at the defensive line that they have assembled in Carolina, Star Latule and Greg Hardy, on the right side. On the other side, you've got, you got Charles Johnson, who's been an absolute beast at defensive end the last few years. Got a big contract, too. And then you also got to give a lot of credit where credit is due to the other guy on the other side. Sorry about this, I'm a little bit off my game today. Their defensive line from left to right: Charles Johnson, Dwan Edwards, Star Latule, and Greg Hardy. They've been absolute beast. The inside of their defense, middle linebacker Luke Kuechly, Rookie of the Year. They've got a pretty decent secondary, with Josh Thomas, Quentin Michael, Mike Mitchell, and Captain Munnerlyn, who's a really good corner. They've got a good defense, and I think Carolina's going to force Atlanta some big mistakes. Matt Ryan last week in Arizona throwing 4 picks, an example of that. You take away Roddy White from him, and you take away Julio Jones for the whole season, this is what happens. I never in my wildest dreams figured Atlanta would be this bad. I figured that they'd probably drop off and win 13 games. I didn't expect them to have 5 losses in 7 weeks. I got to go with Carolina. They're just a better team right now at the point of attack. They're getting pressure and stopping the run, which is incredibly vital against Atlanta. If you make Matt Ryan have to beat you with literally nothing but his arm, you're in great shape. The next game is Kansas City at Buffalo. Now, Thad Lewis has done an admirable job at quarterback for the Bills. But the Kansas City Chiefs defense is not an ordinary defense. And as of right now, there's no telling, actually, if Thad Lewis will start the game against the Chiefs, because it could be Jeff Toole or Matt Flynn. But let's put it this way. When this team gets E.J. Manuel back, they're going to be a good team. I think that this team will make a playoff berth, make a playoff appearance in the next 2 years. I believe it. They've got a defensive line that's ferocious. They've got an offensive line that's coming together, but needs at least one more big man in the center, the big man up there to make it really formidable. And they got a quarterback and a good running game and some receivers, weapons. They got a good team that they're putting together up in Buffalo. They cannot afford to let Jerry Spurd walk, though. Stephen Gilmore's a good corner, though. But for Kansas City, that defense, wow. You got Tamba Hawley and Justin Houston at linebacker. You've got Dontari Poe's been a beast in the middle defensive tackle. You get safety Eric Berry, who's one of the hardest hitters in the league, and plays like a young Troy Polamalu. You've got a defense that's hungry, and honestly, Andy Reid's coached some really damn good defenses in his day because he was in Philadelphia, and they had some good defenses when they were getting to their conference title games. Those defenses pale in comparison to what he has here. The offensive side, Jamal Charles, 100 yards from scrimmage in every game this year, has been unbelievably consistent. Offensive Player of the Year candidate and MVP candidate. And Alex Smith been consistent, steady. Not a lot of big plays, but not a lot of turnovers. I'd rather have a quarterback throw for fewer touchdowns but fewer picks than a lot of touchdowns and a lot of picks. But I think Kansas City wins this game in Buffalo. They're a better team. And again, Buffalo doesn't even know who the hell is going to start a quarterback. That's automatically an edge for the Chiefs. Next game is Vikings at Cowboys. Now, if anyone's expecting Minnesota to come off this Monday night debacle at home against the Packers, where they got blown out 44-31, they're dumber than I thought, because Minnesota is just a terrible team. I did not think that coming off a playoff appearance and a hell of a season last year that they would remotely turn to what they've become. A team without a quarterback. Literally, Adrian Peterson can't do it all by himself. He's being asked to. I mean, what happened whenever they played against earlier this year, when they played against New York and they had like 28 yards rushing? Peterson at 28 yards rushing. He can't do that. I mean, look at the game against the Green Bay Packers. Look at that scoreline. I mean, Christian Ponder, statistically, in terms of his rating, didn't have a great game. But, I mean, Peterson, 13 carries, 60 yards and a touchdown. Man, those kind of numbers, they can't afford to be putting up. They got to be putting up more offensive, statistical numbers, and they've got to be scoring more. But against Dallas, it's going to be a little bit easier in Green Bay, because Dallas won't have DeMarcus Ware. He's a game-time decision, I believe, again. Anthony Spencer's gone for the year. Jason Hatcher, defensive tackle, has been an absolute monster, so he's going to be tough for them to handle. But I think Dallas wins this game because they're in Dallas. And the fact that Tony Romo at home in October and November has proven to be very, very good in his career. And I think that trend continues. He's had a couple of big games in his career in November. And I think this is the time of year where he really starts to turn it up just a little bit. I think people give Romo too much slack. Yes, he's had some dumb throws and some big moments. But honestly, you got to look at what he's going to do 90% of the time. And his 90% is better than a lot of the other quarterbacks in the league. I'll take Romo and the Cowboys. The next game will be St. Louis hosting the Tennessee Titans. Tennessee's an underrated team, I think. But I think St. Louis will beat them. I mean, St. Louis coming off that Monday night loss to Seattle, where they got to have a bad taste in their mouth because they were down 14-9, had a chance to win it in the goal line stand, didn't get in the end zone. They could have very easily beaten Seattle. And that would have shaken up the NFC playoff picture potentially in the future because you have a division loss and an NFC loss. If anything, if you're an NFL team, you'd go 12-0 against your own conference, and you can go 0-4 against the AFC. It doesn't matter because you went undefeated in your conference. You got tiebreak records. You got tiebreakers over your opponents. So St. Louis, Seattle could have lost that game, but Tennessee, on the other hand, has been a good team. Like, I think underrated this year. They're 3-4. They're not terrible. But if you look at them statistically, they don't impress you a lot. But then you look at the fact that,
They are at St. Louis.
Pardon me, I'm on the ESPN page. I hate when they have those advertisements pop up. They beat the Steelers in Pittsburgh. I know Pittsburgh's bad, but still going into Pittsburgh and beating them is pretty impressive, especially when you manhandled them off front the way they did. Crushed New York 38-13, almost as bad as the Bengals did. Gave Kansas City a good game, gave Seattle a good game in Seattle. So they're an underrated team. But I'm going to go with St. Louis on this because of that pass rush. I mean, Robert Quinn and Chris Long had 6 sacks between them against the Seattle Seahawks. And they're going to get a lot of pressure like that against the Titans and Jake Locker at the quarterback position. Speaking of the quarterback position, in the next game, we got probably the best quarterback in the NFL going up against one of the best quarterbacks in the league, one of my favorite players in the league, going up against one of the, how should I put this, new up-and-comers at quarterback in the NFL. We got the New Orleans Saints traveling to the Meadowlands to take on the New York Football Giants. I don't know where to begin with the New York Jets because they beat the Patriots in a last-second field goal, and then they get blown out in Cincy by 40 points. I don't get that. They're a very confusing team. I mean, they have potential. Geno Smith's proven he can play some decent football. That defense has proven it can get a good pass rush going. They could have got a decent running game and a decent offensive line. They've got some talent on that team, but it pales in comparison to what New Orleans has. They've got Jimmy Graham at tight end, Colston and Stills at wide receiver. They've reacquired Devery Henderson. They got Lance Moore as well as a beast of a wide receiver. They got Pierre Thomas out of the backfield, Darren Sproles out of the backfield. I mean, and they got Drew Brees, who right now is playing the quarterback position as well as anybody, and having one of his best seasons. I mean, if you look at Drew Brees and his statistics, he's having another MVP potential candidate year. I mean, he hasn't won the MVP award yet, but he's got all the potential in the world to. Through 7 games, he's completing almost 68% of his passes. He's thrown for 2,290 yards, 19 touchdowns, and a mere 5 interceptions. So if this season holds up, it'll be the 3rd best pass rating of his entire career. And I got to give the guy credit. He's playing some decent football. He really is. He's playing some of the best he's ever played. And I think that's one of the reasons I'm going to pick New Orleans to beat the Jets, because the Jets have good corners and good safeties, but the problem with it is that their linebackers are not good in space covering. And if you can't cover with the linebackers against the New Orleans Saints, you're going to get chewed up all day long. So New Orleans for me. The final game, 1 o'clock game to break down, is the San Diego Chargers traveling east to take on the Redskins. What I just mentioned is the one reason why I'm picking the Redskins west to east. Because you look at teams that go west to east, go east to west, and go from west to east, pardon me. In the NFL nowadays, going from Pacific to Atlantic times or whatever, it's a nightmare because it's tough with jet lag and you can't really get focused. Unless you leave like a week early and adjust, it's tough to do it, and I doubt San Diego did that. Hell, I'd be surprised if they already left. The thing about the Chargers is that they're a good team. They got Phillip Rivers, a quarterback, having a really good season. Antonio Gates having a really good season. But I give the edge to the Redskins in this matchup for a big reason. Because of the east-west thing. Because team to travel east from west to east, it's just something. I don't know what it is, but it's so much tougher to do well when you have that going against you. Plus, I think the Washington Redskins are going to take advantage of two details. The Chargers have 3 interceptions as a defense all year, which is 28th in the league. And they're giving up an NFL third to worst 4.8 yards per carry. You don't think Washington, their running game, is going to try to take advantage of that? Washington's going to try to run the football right at them, and I think it's going to work because I honestly cannot. I don't think San Diego is going to come east and automatically stop the run. I think they've been having problems with that all year, particularly in yards per carry. 4.8 yards per carry they're allowed. Not good against a team with Alfred Morris and RG3, giving the Redskins. 4 o'clock game, Philly traveling west to take on the Oakland Raiders in a rematch of Super Bowl 15. Yes, it's an ancient Super Bowl matchup, but it just sounds cool. The Raiders are going to win this game, bar none. And I've said this before, and I got Chip Kelly, and I think I'm going to go ahead and say it again for the sake of argument. I have no idea why the Eagles hired him. Now, for one, I understand why, because they're offensive genius. Michael Vick, LaShawn McCoy at weapons, and Deshaun Jackson, Jeremy Maclin weapons. But I don't get the Chip Kelly hiring for one reason. One, it's not so much that he's done a great job of coaching. He just has a scheme that's just so radical. You get a bunch of talented players, and you plug them in, and of course you're going to score. I mean, but here's the thing. Look at the big games that Oregon's been in under Chip Kelly. The BCS title game against Auburn, they came up way short, only scored 19 points. The Rose Bowl against Ohio State, they didn't score much at all. But the big one for me was the see if I can find it. I can't remember off the top of my head. Would probably have to be, that Rose Bowl game. Would probably have to be the Stanford game from last year. I mean, no, it's not a BCS bowl game, but it had all the makings of it, because Stanford, Pac-12 rival, big rivalry. And their team came up short. You know why? Because Chip Kelly, he gets talented players, can't freaking coach them for shit. And then now he's in Philly, he's got to actually coach. Team has no defense, and it's falling right through on offense. Raiders are going to run Raiders and Darren McFadden are going to run roughshod over them. Terrell Pryor might have 100 yards rushing. Next game is Tampa Bay at Seattle. You've got the worst team in the league traveling northwest to take on arguably the best team in the league. I'm gonna make this really quick. 99.1% of every person who voted on ESPN's Pigskin Pick'em picked Seattle. Yeah, Seattle's gonna kick their ass. The next game is Baltimore-Cleveland. And I did this with the Jets playing the Patriots a few weeks ago, and I was right. I'm going with the underdog at home. I'm going with Cleveland because I think Cleveland can give Baltimore trouble. And I'll tell you why. Because, for one, they've got a defense that's physical. They've got a defense that's tenacious. And they can make Joe Flacco one-dimensional. The Ravens are near the bottom of the league in rushing yards this year, in the bottom 5. And Cleveland is, good in pass defense and run defense. Overall, they're really secure. And anytime Joe Flacco goes on the road and he's not having a particularly good season, it's tough. It's really unpredictable with Joe Flacco on the road, actually, because Cleveland's a good team. They can make him one-dimensional. He doesn't have a Ray Rice security blanket. He's not going to be able to beat them with just, his arm. I foresee another Joe Flacco interception mired game. I'm thinking maybe 3-4 interceptions. I'm picking the Cleveland Browns in an upset. The next game pits my Pittsburgh Steelers going northeast to take on the New England Patriots. And honestly, this game's not as far-fetched as it seems for the Steelers. As a football, 94.46% of the voters are picking the Patriots. But I just... The best way I could put this is to say... How can I put this? Is that Pittsburgh actually matches up quite well with New England. And I'll tell you why. The only guy on that Patriots offense that actually scares me in terms of catching the football is Rob Gronkowski. If Lawrence Timmons, who's done a marvelous job as inside linebacker since he's been a starter from day one, In the last 2 years, he's been marvelous. If he can more or less control how many grabs that Rob Gronk gets, and more or less able to keep in check, him off the line of scrimmage, because Kendall Tompkins and Aaron Dobson are not going to have big days against Ike Taylor and whoever starts at the other cornerback position, whether it be Cortez, whether it be Willie Gay, whatever. Or it doesn't matter. It's going to be awful hard for those guys to get off the line of scrimmage against the veteran corners. And besides, I think Dick LeBeau's kind of figured out the Patriots' offense with Tom Brady. It's short passing game. You don't need to send your safeties deep. You don't have any deep threats to New England. Don't worry about it. But on the offensive side of the ball, the Steelers have to get out of their own end zone, because they've been starting so many drives back up on their own 15 or closer to the goal line, and it's been killing them. They've had to punt, and then you see the situation they get put in. What happened in Oakland? Oakland kept getting the ball in great field position, grind down the clock, scoring touchdowns. Now, can the Patriots run the ball like the Raiders? No, hell no. Tom Brady's no Terrell Pryor. I mean, if Tom Brady goes 93 yards for a touchdown, then the guy who's coaching the defense he's going against should be fired at that particular moment. Don't wait to the end of the game, fire him. I just cannot fathom, why so many people are picking New England. They're looking at the records and saying that's the reason why, but I don't know what it is. I just think that Pittsburgh has a better chance of winning this game. My gut and my head are going to say New England will win because they're in New England. But I don't think this game's entirely out of the question for Pittsburgh. I think last week, they had some mental mistakes. They did. But let's put it this way. If Sweesham makes his 2 field goals, we're talking about 3-4 and back in the AFC North race. Update from Cincinnati and Miami. The Cincinnati Bengals have tied the game against the Miami Dolphins. Giovanni Bernard with a 35-yard run. He now has 78 yards. Andy Dalton still with 2 interceptions. AJ Green, I need you to get me some more yards here. But back to the game of the Steelers and the Patriots. I'm going to go with the Patriots because I believe that the Patriots will win the game, but I don't think this game's as far-fetched as you think. And on the other side, if Aqib Talib does play against Pittsburgh, it will be tough for Antonio Brown because Talib is really that damn good. I don't know if Talib will be able to cover Brown in terms of, the moves that Brown can make because he's a really shifty receiver. But I will say this. He'll help shut him down. If Talib plays, Patriots will win the blowout. But if not, I think the Steelers have a fighting chance. I'm going to go with the Patriots just because they're at home. And I think the Steelers are struggling enough. It's enough to warrant a Patriots pick. The next game is Indianapolis at Houston. That's the Sunday night game. And I don't know what happened to Houston this year. It started off 2-0, good team, and all of a sudden Matt Schaub completely regresses like 5 years. And what is up with, their mentality? And I'll tell you what it is. Gary Kubiak is never ever going to win a Super Bowl as a head coach. In fact, he'll never ever advance to win more than one playoff game in one postseason. In fact, he's going to be done after this year. He'll be done. You watch. The thing about the Texans is that, they have Case Keenum starting against the Indianapolis Colts defense with Robert Mathis, who's got over 10 sacks already, at linebacker. I mean, that's just not a really winning proposition for Houston, even though they're at home. I mean, Houston was the best team in the AFC South the last 2 years, bar none. And for much of last year, they were the best team in the league. So to go from that to 2-5 to start this year, it's got to hurt. But I want to see how Indianapolis recovers from losing Reggie Wayne for the year. Yeah, they got weapons like Dwayne Allen, Kobe Fleener, T.Y. Hilton. But it's going to be really interesting to see how this hampers Andrew Luck, because he's always had Reggie Wayne as a security blanket. This will be a true test of Andrew Luck and to see if he's finally arrived. Because if he can complete the last 9 games of the season and potentially the playoffs and play well without Reggie Wayne, that'll prove that he is once and for all the definite answer to that team, that quarterback. for that team. But for this game, I gotta go with the pick Indy because I know it's division rivalry. I know you're going into Houston. I know it's gonna be tough. But can Houston win? Absolutely. Case Keenum goes out and plays a good game, plays out of his mind. They can win. I just find it very, very hard to believe that Case Keenum's gonna beat the Indianapolis Colts. And now for Monday night, Chicago at Green Bay, old NFC North showdown. And for my money, the second best rivalry in football right now, next to Steelers-Ravens. I'm going to go with the Green Bay Packers here because they're at home, and I was not giving Green Bay near enough credit prior to last Sunday. I know that they only won by 13 in many, and I know that could have been a lot more one-sided, but whenever both teams are trying their absolute hardest and weren't playing, prevent defenses and whatnot, I've never seen the Green Bay Packers with Aaron Rodgers and Mike McCarthy run the football like they are. It's absolutely ridiculous how well they are moving the football. Because statistically, they were near the bottom of the league the last how many years? But this year, they're averaging 141 yards a game rushing. Those are numbers we didn't expect out of Green Bay this year. Now, will they get those against the Chicago Bears? I doubt that, because Chicago's a little bit stingier against the run than Minnesota is. But Chicago's lately has been slipping. They have been. They're 25th in rushing yards, 117.3 per game. I don't think they're going to be able to show that up long term. I don't think they're going to be able to, for the long term, keep teams from scoring the ball. But I have a feeling that they'll be able to shut them down, Green Bay down a little bit more. Maybe 80 yards at most, 90 for Green Bay. But it's all Aaron Rodgers. That Packers team, Aaron Rodgers drives that bus. He is the definite answer when you say who is. If you could pick one guy who is the Green Bay Packers, it's him. The guy's down his 2 starting offensive tackles. He's down most of his big play receivers. He's playing with a bunch of no-names. They had like 11 starts combined their career, 11 catches, I think, prior to the Sunday night game against Minnie. And they went out and put up 44 points. Check mark to Green Bay for this one. Right now, they're playing like a possessed team. They're just playing unbelievable. All right, so that's my picks for this week. I'll go run through them really quickly. I picked Cincy over Miami, and now it's tied. So I hope that Cincy. I hope that Miami wins because I'm a Steeler fan, obviously. I mean, but still, I did pick Cincy. I picked Carolina over Atlanta, Kansas City over Buffalo, Dallas over Minnie, St. Louis over Tennessee, New Orleans over the Jets, Washington over San Diego, Oakland over Philly, Seattle over Tampa Bay, Cleveland over Baltimore, New England over Pittsburgh, Indianapolis over Houston, and Green Bay over Chicago. All right, that's my picks for this week. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll be back soon to do another show. So just keep your eyes out. Oh, by the way, I'd like to, even though I'm not a big fan of them as a team, I would like to congratulate the Boston Red Sox for going to one of the worst teams in the league last year to go becoming the World Series champion this year. David Ortiz, Big Papi had a hell of a postseason, I should say. 11 for 15 in the World Series. That's sick. Guy deserves all the credit in the world. All right, see you guys. Peace out.